Hello, my name is Scott Hunsaker with the Ardent Group. Welcome back. We have been talking about the 5 steps about how do we transfer the institutional knowledge and the business savvy to the next generation of leaders so they have the confidence in themselves to push all their chips in and bet they have what it takes to successfully lead your organization into the future. You know, I would submit that if nothing ever changed in our organization, we wouldn't need leaders. Because what's working in your organization is going to work today, tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, until what? Until something changes. So how are we teaching each member of our organization not only how to embrace change, but how to affect change? You know, if one of your team members brings you a great idea, and you say, that's the best idea I've ever heard in my life, and 90 days later, nothing happens. They bring you another great idea, and you say, that's the best idea I've ever heard in my life, and 90 days later, nothing happens. What's the likelihood of them bringing you a third great idea? So how are we going to make this contract with each member of our organization so they're being paid to think, just not there to do merely what they're being told? If we can harness the horsepower of all those great brains in our organization to help achieve our goals and objectives, what would that allow us to achieve? So how do we make that contract? What if we created some type of mechanism where they could bring opportunities for improvement for us? Maybe if you're in manufacturing, you're using Lean, Six Sigma, ISO, something like that. But if you're not in manufacturing, how are you coming up with a proven process to manage change? This is how we did it. In other words, because every one of our projects was different, and so it had a different contractor, a different recipe of suppliers, it was a little on the difficult side to find statistical measures to identify opportunities for improvement. Well, we found the most important resource to find those opportunities for improvement were our people. So the contract we made with our people is, if you have this great idea, put it down in a situation report. Now, this is not a suggestion box. In other words, in the situation report, they're having to identify the issue. What is all the information we need to make a knowledgeable decision? What's the information we know? What's the information we don't know? What's the information we don't know we don't know? What are all the unintended consequences? What is our ideal outcome? And then what is your recommendation? In other words, they're not bringing this issue and giving you what I'm going to call the monkey, which is the problem to you to solve. We're teaching each and every member of our organization how to solve problems too, how to be leaders. And then what we would do is we'd sit down once a month with that information and we'd say, do we have enough information to make a knowledgeable decision? And most of the time the answer to that was no. So we put together a subject matter expert group that had the owner on it. And they go out and do additional research, maybe come back with, additional calculations, proposed language. In other words, they were changing the master toolbox and bringing it to the group for consideration. We'd sit down the second month and we'd say, do we have enough information to make a knowledgeable decision? And if the answer was yes, we would go back and update the toolbox to affect that change so everybody in the organization benefit from it. I don't think this situation report process works if you don't have a master toolbox, because now it's just a lot of circular conversations. The outcome of this is that I hopefully didn't have a problem making a mistake once if we learned from it. It drove me crazy to make the same mistake over and over and over again. So how are you teaching your leadership team to manage change, and how we're teaching every member of your organization to embrace change and contribute and being paid to think so we can be the best company and deliver the best possible product and service to our clients? So that's step 4. Step 5 is trusting with confidence. Now this is where we're going to talk about real ownership. So if you're not interested in real ownership transfer, I think these first 4 steps have a tremendous amount of value. And I would suspect you can even get some takeaways from the 5th step. What do I mean by trusting with confidence? You see, I've seen CEOs kind of approach this transition 2 different ways. They go, I've spent my entire life building this company. It is perfect. Now don't change a thing and don't screw it up. Or maybe another way of doing it is, I've spent my entire life building this company. It is the best I can make it, and I trust you to make it even better. What has a higher likelihood of success? So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. I look forward to seeing you. Again, my name is Scott Hunsaker, and I am with the Ardent Group.